Hi everybody, it's Bill Whittle Live, and the date is, what is it, 8/02/13/17. It's Monday here in the land of enchantment I'm getting, hang on, I'm getting all kinds of fun things here. Okay, so here's the thing. We got an incredible fun show today. As always, we would never leave you without an incredible fun show. But I do want to say that we are going to have to move the time of this baby because we just don't have the time. We're strangling it. We're just struggling here like crazy people trying to make sure everything works. For example, check out this bitchin' background here. Do it. Do it. See? Come on. See, it's like this is the problem with this whole thing. We got this awesome animated background, and we got all kinds of really cool things, and we want everything to be looking nice and there it goes, and everything looking nice and ready to go and really cool. But we just don't have time, so we're going to have to move it later. We were thinking 11:30, but then some people said, "Why compete with Rush Limbaugh?" And I thought, you know what? That's right. After everything he's done for the country, it's not fair for me to be taking audience away from Rush Limbaugh. I mean, it's just not. You all bow down below the golden microphone. So we will be doing it probably at 12, but I will definitely get a word from our boys, Steve Green and Scott Ott, and we'll get this thing going a little bit later. So today we got two fun topics. And the first one is called Damn You California, and the second one's Go Home Meryl, You're Drunk. The second one is going to be for members only. We're going to probably switch off at about 11:17 or something like that. Our membership is growing enormously. We're very pleased about that. If you want to join the fun, you can always become a member at BillWhittle.com. So, Damn You California. Here's what's interesting about Damn You California. There is in California a dam called the Oroville Dam. I get my notes there, and as soon as you got a shot ready, Neil, you can just load that baby up. So the Oroville Dam was built in 1968, and we've had a tremendous wet winter, which is great. A wet winter for California is amazing. This has been the wettest winter we've had in a long, long time. But here's I'll tell you the political point I want to make in a minute. You can see that there's a spillway, an emergency spillway there on the Oroville Dam, and, well, it spilled. We had more water than we thought we would get. The water went spilling down the side there, and nobody's quite sure at this moment, as we record this on the morning of Monday, whether or not that dam's going to hold. If it doesn't, they've already evacuated the town of Marysville, which is kind of in the direct path of that onrushing wall of water he's about to show you there. Go flip. There you go. And that doesn't look like a fun thing to be buried beneath. So nobody appears to be in danger right now. I don't want to speak, out of turn. Hopefully it will turn out to be nothing in terms of human casualties. But there is a much, much bigger point to be made here. And the basic point I'd like to make is this. Here in California, I pay an additional 9% of my income, which from BillWhittle.com, what's it got to be? Almost $1/3 billion a year, I think, something like that. And that goes directly to the government of California. And we, for the life of us, have not been able to figure out what all of this government buys us. We just can't seem to see it. We've got some of the worst roads in the country. We've got bridges that fall down. We've got things that aren't working. The 405 freeway, which just took a huge part of that. Remember the stimulus package back in 2009 that didn't stimulate anything other than stimulate the retirement funds of a lot of public sector workers? Well, guess what? The 405 freeway is it's like a third world country. My fiance, who hopefully is watching right now, is from Russia, and you would think all of us have, this view of Russia. Obviously, Russia is just nothing but, wagon ruts in the mud. But their roads are brand new and they're fantastic. That's a socialist government, and we've got a socialist government in California. They're taking 9% of my income. That's just for the state, and they're taking 9% of everybody else's income too. And the problem is, we ain't getting squat for this money. Nothing. We're not getting anything. You look at places without an income tax, places like Texas or something like that, they're in far better shape than California. Far, far, far better shape. So the thing I'd like to talk about for a minute here, too, is where is all that money going? Now, I have to just throw in one thing. It's a little bit gratuitous, but you just can't pass up an opportunity like this. Oroville Dam up in California is in, are you ready for this? This only means something for you kids out there, you nutty kids in your internet background. It's in Yolo County, Yolo, Yolo County. And for those of you that don't know what that's referencing, A couple years ago on the internet, there was a ongoing meme. It was just like a meme storm, and it basically was YOLO, was you only live once, and people were getting tattoos, they're getting YOLO on their hands and YOLO on it. And YOLO was a pretty good sign of, if you had a YOLO tattoo or if you said YOLO all the time, the chances are pretty good that you're not going to survive the gene pool, Olympics, which are coming up. It was always something like, you only live once. I'm about to check out this homemade bungee cord. So those poor people up in Yolo County, I don't mean to make fun of them because they're the victims of the greatest institutionalized theft in the history of the world. It's not just California, it's the entire federal government. But let's talk about California, because here's the thing that I would like to have an answer for as a resident of California. And my basic question is pretty simple, is where is all of my damn money going anyway? What am I buying for 9% of my income in addition to the amount of money that the federals take? What am I getting? Why is it that states with no income tax, or smaller ones like Florida have immaculate roads? Texas's roads are fantastic. And that's Texas. I mean, there's just huge areas of Texas with nobody in it, but the roads are terrific. California, the roads are third world quality, and so's the rest of the infrastructure, and so are the dams. So where's my money going? I'd like an answer for this. And it's going to go to a bigger point, but just so you know, this dam was built in 1968. Now, as I say, the good news is we've been in a big drought out here for a long time, and finally we got a wet winter. We got the wettest winter I've ever seen, probably the wettest winter in at least 50 years or so. So this dam was built in 1968. There's an emergency spillway, which means that as the water levels get higher, if they can't move enough water through the dam in a controlled way, there's a spillway that lets the excess kind of go off in an area that's not going to hurt people. And so a couple days ago, this was the first time that any water had ever gone over that spillway in it's almost 50 years since the dam was built. And then the second they started using the spillway started to fall apart and started to leak and come apart and all the rest of it. And guess what? Now, I hope you're sitting down, because I know so many of the viewers out here have nothing but endless faith in the power of government to do everything just exactly right. So for those of you who are progressives out there listening, and I know they're in the millions, please sit down for a moment, because I'm about to break some bad news to you. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, in 2005, there were 3 groups that took a look at the Oroville Dam. This is in 2005, 12 years ago, and they petitioned, I've actually never heard of them, FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and a couple of 3 environmental groups doing what environmental groups should do. Actually, this is kind of what they're supposed to do. Basically went out there and looked at this dam and said, we don't like it. We don't think it's safe. We don't think it's built to spec. We don't think anything about it is anything that we particularly like. So the federal government took a look at the Oroville Dam and said, everything's fine. What could possibly go wrong? There's absolutely no chance of anything going wrong at this magnificent dam built by public expense back in 1968. Everybody just relax and have a nice mocha latte and go back to working your job so we can take more of your money. Well, the dam is in the process of failing. We all hope that the dam is not going to fail, needless to say. But what we are finding is that this dam is not working. The roads are not working. They're breaking down. Everything in California is breaking down, and California takes in it's got to be by far the largest revenue of any state in the nation. It's the most populous state. It's got the most money. It's got the largest economy of any state, and they take 9% of it. And I want to know what you buy with that money. I know when I pay federal taxes, I at least get a military. At least that is going to be working again and worked in the past. But what do I get for my state taxes? And the point here is really, really important, because this goes right to the heart of the progressive versus the conservative argument about government in general. And that point is simply this. If the progressives are right and all of the good people go into government, I don't like those little signs. What is that, Neil? Did we just lose somebody? Hard drive full. Well, we're recording to the wrong hard drive. We're still recording to archiving to okay, we got a secret mystery channel just for our members, which we're going to be switching to in a minute. We got to get that preset fixed. We got a lot of things that we have to do to keep this live show going. In any event, the argument is that the progressives will say, no, you can't have those, rapacious private companies running this stuff because they'll just do it for profit. Yeah, they will do it for profit. And guess what, genius? If it turns out that they're not doing a good job, somebody else will do a good job. They will provide better services at lower cost. Can you imagine? Imagine the genius of it. But no, they say no, the progressives say no, it has to be done by government because government is filled with idealistic individuals who are not in it for the profit. They're not in it for the money. No, they're not in it for money. Nothing filthy like that. They're in it to serve the public good. So the question I have for the progressives is this. If that's true, and they take all of this money from us at gunpoint by force, then why does the infrastructure of this state suck so bad? And also, why do the public sector retirement funds of this state lead the nation, the world, and everybody else? In other words, if the people of government, the good people of government, the progressives who understand that profit motive, filthy. No, we can't have that in our public government. If these people are so good and so noble and so ideal and so smart and so hardworking, why is it that our dams are failing and our roads suck, but they're taking home $250,000 a year in retirement money? $250,000 a year. This is their retirement pay. Now, to me, it's pretty simple. You can go up to any progressive you want to, and you can ask them this question. If you're right and we're wrong, if the government is in fact made out of people who are very, 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 very concerned about the welfare of the public and sacrifice their own lives where they could be making filthy lucre out there in the capitalist world in order to provide services to the government, then if they're right and we are wrong, then the roads in California would be excellent, and the dams in California would be excellent, and the bridges in California would be excellent, and the public sector retirement funds would be meager, because that's what it would look like if your public servants did what the progressives say they will do, which is put the interests of the people first. So, since that's not the case, since we take all of this enormous amounts of money, and since this enormous huge fund of money goes to something other than roads and dams and infrastructure, it's going to people. It's going to people who are enriching themselves. Hang on now, progressives, because I know your head's going to come right off here. They're enriching themselves. They're making themselves rich. They're greedy, money-grubbing, rotten bastards. But unlike businessmen, unlike most of your conservatives, they're not providing excellent quality at low cost. They get to take the money that they steal from you, and they get to take it at gunpoint, and you don't get to go to another government. You don't get to say, hey, I don't like this particular California government. I don't like the way they're building their dams. I don't like the way they're inspecting their dams. I don't like the way they're building their roads. I don't like the way that the 405 expansion that was part of the 2009 stimulus package said it'd be finished in 2011 or 13 at the latest. It wasn't finished until 16, something like that. Millions and millions of dollars over budget, 3 or 4 years late. But here's what's interesting about that, just as an aside, to show you that we're right and they're wrong, not that this is terribly hard. Listen to this, folks. The 405 freeway was widened for an area of about 8 miles, something like that. They're going to put in one lane on either side. Okay, if you're going to steal our federal money and spend it on something, I'd rather have you do it on that than something else. So here's what happened with the 405. It was a big job, no question. They had to cut into the mountainsides. They had to widen it up. They had to reinforce the mountainsides with concrete. Then they had to put this decorative stuff on there. It looks very nice, and it is a little bit wider. But here's the problem. It took 4 or 5 years. It was over budget. Over schedule. God knows how much time it was over budget. But do you know what wasn't over budget or over schedule? Do you know what part of this whole equation came in under budget and under schedule? Well, guess what? Guess what? There were 2 times in that construction of the 405 freeway where the bridge that runs Mulholland Drive, it's at the very peak of the separation between the valley and the city. Right at the very top of Sepulveda Pass, there's a very high span bridge, and it connects Mulholland Drive from one side to the other. And the contract for the 405 renewal basically said that they're going to have to pull that down. That means they're going to have to close the 405 freeway, which is the busiest road in the world. By volume, busiest road in the world. So guess what? This will shock you. Please remain seated, progressives. The only part of the entire 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year project that started at hundreds of millions of dollars and undoubtedly ballooned to billions, the only part of this that was completed on time and on budget, under budget, was the 2 times that they brought that bridge down because it closed off the freeway. Now, why were these 2 days of closing the freeway, the only times that came out under budget and on schedule? And the answer is because the contract said that for every hour beyond the whatever they needed, let's say they need 36 hours, every hour beyond that 36 hours, the company building it would have to pay a huge fine, something like $50,000-$60,000 an hour or something like that. So for the first time and the only time, they did it twice. They took out one lane, then they did some more work, and then they built the second part, and then they took out the second side and built that. So the only two times that this freeway was ever under budget and on time was when they had to pay for being over budget and had to pay especially for being over schedule. You'd almost think, I'm a cynic, obviously, needless to say, that's why I'm a conservative. You'd almost think that the idea of making and losing money somehow influenced the ability for these people to work faster. In fact, to work quite fast, because the bridges were down in 3 or 4, or less than that. They were down like 10 hours below what they said they were going to need. Color me shocked. Color me shocked. This is data, folks. This isn't just, I'm not just inventing this. And I don't go looking for things that prove my worldview. I try to look and see what's real, and I move my worldview to that. So if California has these enormous public sector retirement funds, and if everything they do is crap, and they're taking all this money at force, that's telling me that these progressive, noble government people are not progressive and noble. They're thieves, they're cutthroats, they're brigands, they're pirates, they're all kinds of rapscallions and hooligans, these guys, and they are too lazy or too stupid or both to be able to succeed out in the private sector. So they get themselves elected and they go to Sacramento and they vote themselves sums of money that are simply unimaginable. It's unimaginable. I'm just paraphrasing a little bit here, but something like the assistant manager for the water department for Fontana, California, is going home with $220,000 a year in retirement funds. That's somebody made when he was a job. And here's what else these particular swine do. They find a way to do this. So when you retire in the public sector in California, your retirement is based on the highest paying job that you had. So what they do is they take the top guy. Let's say you're the top dog, and you're filling the vitally important role of sidewalk inspector for Bakersfield, California, and that job pays $250,000 a year. Let's say. So what they do is they move somebody into the top job, and that guy does 6 months at the top job, which means he retires at the absolute top level pension. And then they move the next guy up to the top job, and he retires, and the next guy moves up to the top job. It's not like that one guy stays there for like 9 years or 11 years or anything so that he can earn this insane amount of largesse. No, they got it all figured out. They just move you up, retire at this top level. Move you up, retire you at the top level. It's just plain thievery. And somewhere, someday, somehow, somebody's going to have to answer for this, because this is just the federal government on a smaller level. They take about half of what we make. Those of us that have small businesses anyway, they take about half of it. And it's hard to explain to a fiancé from Russia, where the government provides everything and they pay 20% tax, and the government provides everything, and the roads are immaculate, and the streets are spotless, and the public transportation works like a dream, and everything is clean, and everything works, and everything's luxurious, and you don't have to wait in line at places like the DMV. I know this sounds hard to believe, but it's true. This enormous, massive former communist state, this huge, enormous socialist bureaucracy, kleptocracy, is providing services for their citizens, and they are taking half of what we make in this country, and they're not giving us crap. Nothing. The stuff sucks. It's time for another revolution here, I'm telling you. And all you have to do is look at the Oroville Dam, and you only live once county, and it's probably prophetically named. Hopefully this is all going to be just an annoyance and not an actual tragedy for people, but there it is, and there you go. So I think the argument is pretty much closed. All of you run into these progressives who tell, no, it's all about government. We don't believe in profit. Nonsense. You don't believe in profit. You believe in stealing. You believe in taking money that you can't earn, and you're miserable, low-life, greedy, money-grubbing swine is what you are, because you're not giving us anything, and you're taking an awful lot of money. And I'm at the end of this particular rant, which means, oh my gosh, when it's a little ways. We got another half an hour, maybe another 40 minutes, half an hour, 30 minutes, something like that, because now I'm going to get teed up to go after Meryl Streep, who's decided to make herself into once again, a Bonhoeffer or a Schindler or something, and I'm just going to sail into her because frankly I've had enough of this Nazi business. Unfortunately, the sailing into Meryl part is for our members only at BillWhittle.com, and they get to watch a live stream feed. It's archived for them, members only. They get to watch the whole thing through, and then they get to watch all of them as well that have been backed up and archived. I hate to do this to the Facebook people. I genuinely do. I always feel bad about cutting this off, and we're going to have to start cutting it off earlier. I love talking to everybody out there, but to be honest with you, this is a business, and we owe it to the people who are paying for this part for free. So for those of you who are watching on Facebook, we will see you tomorrow, Tuesday morning. Valentine's Day, there's a chance I may not be able to make that show. And if it's true, if I'm not able to make it in advance, I'm telling you, the only reason I can't make it is because I'm going to be, excommunicated by somebody who I like very, very much and who I've been putting in a great many hours for. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. We'll certainly see you Wednesday. And until then, so long, Facebook and BillWhittle.com members. Instant access. You can just go over there right now, click on the button, become a member, and watch the rest, and every one of them every day. So until then, Facebook guys, we will see you tomorrow. And now we're going to launch into Meryl Streep in a big fat way. Have we pushed the button, Neil? We have. Okay, so now that the riffraff's out of the way. Here's the thing, guys. Meryl Streep, as you probably know by now, made an enormous statement at the Golden Globes, and she came out and she talked about the terror that's coming, the great Nazi future of America, and all of the horrible, 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 horrible Nazi death camps that are on their way because this woman's good pal, Hillary Clinton, who is the most corrupt politician in American history, certainly going back to the Teapot Dome scandal, which was also Democrats, and her buddy Hillary, who not only basically took hundreds of millions of dollars in exchange for national security, in exchange for altering government policy, but let's not split hairs here. Her pal Hillary somehow lost the election, which must be only because of the latent Nazi fascist tendencies of the American people, the ugly, ugly middle of the country that we ignore so frequently out here in flyover country. Those savages and knuckle draggers apparently got up on their hind legs and decided that they were going to elect somebody other than Meryl Streep's friend Hillary Clinton. Whatever got into them. Now, people like Meryl Streep and the rest of these progressives cannot accept the simple reality. You have to understand, in order to become a person in show business, to become an actor, there have to be something really missing in you, really something fundamentally missing. And I'm speaking from experience here. I'm not trying to say like I'm above these people. I'm as guilty of this as they are. I've got this same particular virus. But here's how it works. Maybe you didn't get enough attention when you were a kid, or just didn't, you left you alone, or you just didn't get the attention that you wanted, and so you start having imaginary friends, and you start using your imagination, you start play acting and stuff, and then maybe you're a kind of an awkward kid in school, and I'm not just talking about just me, although obviously it's me too, and maybe you don't have a lot of friends, you're not very athletic, and you're kind of a loner, and maybe you're a little weird because you've got all these, don't have a whole lot of social skills, and sometime or another, many of us figure out that if you can make people laugh, or if you can make them cry, if you can do something interesting on stage, you get to be somebody other than the person you are, and that fills you with like a cocaine kind of a high. And I'm not speaking from experience but I've seen people who get cocaine highs. And so what happens is, for the first time in their lives, they get a sense of attention. They get a sense that they're there. Many actors, I fought through this myself. I mean, look, I used to be really, really just an egomaniac. I was just diseased. I was diseased egomaniac, and life and grace somehow pounded all of this evilness out of me and sensibility. And frankly, I've said this before, I'll say it again, the comments I got from people like you forced me to become a better person. But that doesn't happen to everybody. So they need attention. They need applause. They need the worship of the crowd. They need to walk out there with the music and look humble and oh, you like me. You really like me. Sally Field gave the whole game away. That was 20 years ago or so. You like me. You really like me. No, actually, Sally, we don't. We like the person you played in whatever that damn movie was about the unions, but no, we don't particularly like you. We don't know you. We like the work you did. But that's not what she said. She didn't say, you like my work, you really like my work. She said, you like me, you really like me. No, we don't even know you. So people like this get more and more popular, and as the pop culture basically degenerates, and as things get more and more coarse, we're stuck with these people. And as society gets safer too and richer, and we don't have to worry about invasion or conquest. We don't have philosophers anymore. We have Kardashians, and we have Kardashians only because we're not in danger. If we were in real danger, then our heroes would be people like Madison Patton and the 4,000 people who nobody remembered when they died in Iraq, and so on and so forth. So it's celebrity worship and celebrity culture is the signs of end stage civilization. Now that would normally be just enough to really make you scared and made me scared, but there's some interesting news here. And that interesting news is that it just got off the script somehow. It just did. It went off the script. That's what we say in the stage went off the script. I'll tell you a small amusing anecdote here. I've been on stage in two different shows in my life. Both times I was probably, I want to say in 18, 19, both times within 6 months of each other. And one of the shows I was in was a great show. It happened to be the first live play I ever saw, and it was called You Can't Take It With You. It's a comedy. They made a great movie of it. I want to say with Jimmy Stewart, but anyway, it was a fun movie, but the show is actually quite funny. It was written in the 30s, and it's about this very, very odd family of firework makers and ballet dancers and printers, and and just complete lunatics, but lovely, kind people, and kind of like the Munsters. The daughter was the only normal one, and she lived with this nutty family, and the whole first act of this movie is the daughter saying how Tony Kirby, I want to say is the name, the son of the president of the company that she works for, has taken quite a liking to her, and she's invited Tony Kirby over to her house for dinner, and the whole show is about the hilarity that happens when these stiff upper class people, not Tony's a pretty swinging guy, but his father and his mother, and come to meet the family of this young girl. So I went to the audition. I never had much interest in being an actor. I was always more of a writer director type, but I went to the audition because I had a friend, and she said, "Would you come with me just to give me moral support?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" So we went to the Gainesville Little Theater, which is now the Gainesville Community Playhouse, because Little Theater apparently is some kind of pejorative term. In any event, we went to the Little Theater, and there were, as usual for this kind of thing, something like, 20 women there, 25 women, and 3 men, something like that. And 2 of them were actors who were auditioning, and town people, local actors. The guy who runs he's a pharmacist, kind of like waiting for Guffman. In any event, they've got all these females up there reading for the roles, and the director said, would you mind, sir, just coming up and just reading, just with the book, just reading, so they have somebody to read their lines? I said, yeah, no problem. So I got up there, and I got the part, and she didn't, and that was pretty much the end of that. So I find myself on stage. I find myself playing the romantic lead, which was astonishing to me, still is a little bit, of a show called You Can't Take It With You. The whole first act is about setting up this young guy and how awesome he is. And he comes in at the end of the first act, and first rehearsal, the dress rehearsal we did was in front of a retirement home. And I remember very clearly we came out on stage for the dress rehearsal, and I walked on stage. The whole first act has been setting up for Tony Kirby's interest. And I walked out there, and in the front row, there were all these lovely little ladies with blue hair, and they just started, "You're such a nice boy. You're such a nice-looking boy. Oh, aren't you nice?" Like, lady, please, I'm trying to do my job here. But talking about going off the script, the role of Grandpa, who's kind of the center of the movie, was played by an old actor, and he was a fun actor. He's a good old, kind of old school actor, but he had a bit of a memory problem. And I got out there on the third act, which, as you may know, in a 3-act play is the last act. And I got out there, and I fed this guy the lines at the beginning of the third act, which means there's about, maybe 35 minutes of play left, and it's the important 35 minutes, the end of the show. So I fed him the first lines of the third act, and this guy paused for a second, and he came back with the lines that he's supposed to read about 4 minutes before the play ends. He's jumped forward 30 minutes, and he is now reading me the end of the play. And it took me a little while to try and get this guy, but Tom, what we were talking about earlier with it, and just trying to get him back there, and we finally did. But when things go off script, It's alarming when you're an actor because it's all about you don't control it. You don't write the words. This is what's happened to Meryl Streep and all the rest of these people in Hollywood. They knew that they were wrapping up the third act of show her again with her moral. There you go. We knew that they were wrapping up the third act of the perpetual, inevitable socialist world where everything is free and celebrities are there at the top of the social pyramid to provide us with not only with entertainment but with the moral guidance that we lack. And this was pretty much everybody knew this was what was going to happen. Obviously, it's what's going to happen. Hillary's going to win, and Meryl will get the tour of the White House. She'll get to sleep in the Lincoln bedroom, and they'll talk about the poor people and the small people, and they'll do fundraising gestures, or at very least consciousness-raising gestures. And then Meryl can go back to living in the Hollywood Hills and making $12 million for making faces for 3 months or 3 weeks or whatever. And Hillary can go back to Washington and keep extorting money from foreign powers in order to feed her rapacious greed and utter lack of morals. And that's how it was supposed to go. But guess what? Something happened. So Meryl Streep has a particularly strong investment in this emotionally. You could say that she's got a bunch of dogs in this fight. And so Meryl Streep doesn't really know what to do. Here's the big psychological breakthrough. I think that if you understand this, you understand everything about these people. Meryl Streep went from being invited to the White House and being, maybe even a top advisor because Bill Clinton, no problem? Oh, you can't hear me? Levels are low? Okay, how's that? Bill Clinton apparently was going to offer, who was it? Oh, it was a great story. Who was it? It was something like Bill Clinton was gonna what's her name? Sharon Stone was a big fan of Bill Clinton's, and I imagine Bill was a fan of Sharon's, and they had a little flirtatious kind of thing. And I think he put her on some kind of policy board, and Barbara Streisand, who was also on the policy board, was offended to her bone. She says, "Well, Sharon Stone, what does she know about policy?" says Barbara Streisand. So anyway, all of this access is suddenly gone, and these people, as a class, as a group of people, these progressives and these progressive celebrities especially cannot process the fact that people made a decision other than them. They can't process it. They cannot process that somebody might disagree with them. And not just a couple of those ancient dinosaur conservatives, that more than half of the people in the country disagree with them to the point where they elected somebody like Donald Trump. They can't process it because if they had to think about it, they'd come to the realization that maybe they're not right about everything. If 40, 50 million people disagree with me, and it's a reasonable disagreement about issues, then I might be wrong. And if I'm wrong, then how do I telegraph my virtue to everybody? And how do I signal how good I am? Somebody nailed this on the head. It was a sarcastic jibe, but it hit right on the head. And it might have been a cartoon or something, I don't remember. But it was a really progressive couple, and they were talking about adopting a baby, and it turned out that one of the babies that was up for adoption for them was a white baby, and they turned to each other and said, "But if we adopt a white baby, how will everybody know how heroic we are?" Perfect, exactly right. So they're not getting what they want, and they can't comprehend the fact that they might be wrong because everybody thinks the same thing because they're all fundamentally quite stupid and very insecure. So all of these stupid, insecure people are all telling each other, not only, they used to tell each other, "Wow, you're a really great actor. No, you're a better actor than I'm. No, you are a better actor than I'm. Let's have an award every year, and we'll determine who the better actor is, and then 5 of us can get together, and one of us will win, and the 5 of us can go, oh, no, he deserved it. He deserved it." And we had that for a while. That wasn't enough for these black holes of need. So then we decided to have, not just the Oscars, we'll have the Golden Globes. And after the Golden Globes, we have to have the SAG Awards. And after the SAG Awards, we have to have the DGA Awards. And if we're going to have DGA Awards, we got to have the Writers Guild Awards. And we got to have the Golden Globes for 4. We're going to have to have 9, 10, 15, 20 awards every year to fill this insatiable need. And then suddenly, as the progressive movement really started to gather steam, they began to realize that people were listening to them, that things like People magazine, which shockingly didn't exist 40 years ago, people are reading all about their lives, and they want to know what these people eat for breakfast, and they want to know, what they do when they go out, and they want to watch them. I was going to say fishing, but they don't go fishing. You get the idea. People are suddenly interested in their lives, so they make political statements, and all of the rest of the idiots and the insecure idiots just say, "Wow, that's really good. That's exactly what we believe." And they start applauding, and this giant cycle begins, and people like Meryl Streep come to believe that we actually give a damn what she thinks. So there you go. Here's the part about the Meryl Streep story that is so infuriating. There's a little infuriation and a big infuriation. The little infuriation is this. Meryl Streep is basically going out there and complaining that it's terrible to have a target on your head. What can you mean by this, Meryl? Well, as it turns out, after the last time she attacked Donald Trump on the Golden Globes, she didn't get just nothing but universal acclaim. It turns out that there were people, many people, who were quite upset about the fact that she stood up there and insulted Donald Trump because they voted for Donald Trump, and they full well knew that Meryl Streep spending half an hour or whatever it was, felt like an hour, insulting Donald Trump and calling him a Nazi meant that they were insulting them and calling them Nazis too. They understood this. It's not a hard thing to figure out. And they were quite upset about this. And some people even had the audacity, imagine, Neil, can you imagine the audacity of this? They had the audacity to contact her on Twitter and tell her that we don't like what you're saying, and why don't you just shut up and go back to acting. And now, of course, Meryl Streep starts this newest thing where she was at the Human Rights Campaign just yesterday or something. And she gets up there and she says, it's a terrible thing to have a target painted on your head. Really? Imagine my shock. Imagine how terrible it would be, Meryl, if the government was weaponized against you. And imagine that you got special care and attention, not the good kind, looking at your production company and all of the deductions you take. Imagine if the government was weaponized against you. Imagine what kind of target you'd feel like then. You can just ask any straight conservative anywhere out there. Just ask any conservative anywhere about what that feels like. They'd be happy to fill you in for your next role. So she complains about having a target. She complains that she got some blowback. And the two things that are wrong with this are, number one, you have just dumped on half of the country. You have not accepted an award for Best Actress. You've accepted an award as martyr in chief, victim in chief, complainer in chief, and insulter in chief. So you get some blowback from this, and guess what happened? It's a miracle. All of a sudden, Meryl Streep is a victim. She's the victim. She's got a target painted on her back, and God knows how she manages to survive the onslaught of Twitter. But that's the little annoyance. The big annoyance is not just an annoyance. The big annoyance is going to have to be dealt with, and I think this is going to be a firewall very quickly. Meryl Streep said that the people who were criticizing her on Twitter for speaking out and insulting them, they didn't start it, by the way. She started it. But she says that the people who insulted them, who came after her for what she said, are brown shirts. I'm going to look at the full text of what she said about Donald Trump, but here's what happens when you say that conservatives who criticize you for insulting them are brown shirts. When you say they're brown shirts, you mean that they're Nazis. You mean that they're intimidating you by force. You mean that you're a victim of these jackbooted thugs that throughout the late 20s and early 30s beat up people whose opinions they didn't like and who smashed windows and all the rest. And you're accusing the people who criticized you for what you said, you're calling them brown shirts because you think that anybody who disagrees with you is a Nazi. Well, here's a clue for you, Meryl. The people who are beating up people on the streets, the people who are forming gangs dressed in black and pounding people into unconsciousness, the people that are barricading doors so that people can't hear the free expression of ideas, the people who are intimidating people, the people who will not accept the fair results of an actual election, the people who are determined to smash things until they get their way, the people who believe that brute force must be used if the law is not working for them, the people that do all of these fascistic, miserable, violent, low-life, terrible, dreadful things are your people, Meryl. They're not our people. They're your people. You're the Nazi, Meryl. You see? You're the Nazi. We're not the Nazi. You're the Nazi. You're the person who's trying to get people to shut up, or at the very least, who are backing people in support of people who are beating up folks because they kind of want to hear a gay man speak on a college campus. Imagine the shock. And you're also one of these people, since we're at it, who not only backs up this kind of fascist movement that we have now, this self-glorifying thing called Antifa. They're calling themselves for anti-fascists. You know why they call themselves Antifa? I got a pretty good idea. It took me a day to figure it out, but then I realized they're probably calling themselves Antifa, anti-fascist, because it sounds a good deal like Intifada. You see, it sounds quite a bit like Intifada. And Intifada is an uprising, and Intifada are people who throw rocks at tanks. I think they're 100% wrong, and I think they're responsible for all of the misery that they get. But going out in the streets and throwing rocks at tanks requires a little bit of courage. Even though they know the Israelis are not going to fire on them, it requires something, right? But these people aren't throwing rocks at tanks because there are no tanks, and they're not protesting death camps because there are no death camps. And for Meryl Streep to say that people who criticize what she says on Twitter are brown shirts is to equate what Donald Trump supporters and conservatives are saying to the Nazis, which is not only a mortal insult to conservatives, not only a mortal insult to the people that actually went and fought the Nazis, like my dad, for example. It's more than that. When you do this, you're not raising yourself, Meryl. You're not raising yourself to the level of a Bonhoeffer or Schindler or anybody else who genuinely fought the Nazi regime. All you're doing is insulting and degrading the memory of people who were actually murdered by actual Nazis, who were actually taken out and killed 5-6 million Jews, another 5-6 million homosexuals, gypsies, and all the rest. Those people actually died, and they died in gas chambers. And I'll show you a picture, Meryl, because I feel like it. A picture of the inside of one of those gas chambers, and you can see on the concrete wall, these are poured concrete walls, you can see fingernail marks in the concrete, Meryl. It's not in the drywall, it's in the concrete, it's in the poured concrete. Scratches and fingernails of people trying to get out of this death chamber, which you are equating with somebody who argues back at you after you've just insulted them. You are one miserable, low-life, idiotic, self-centered, narcissistic, mean-spirited bitch, and you don't understand anything about anything, and you had better go home and be quiet and do some reading, because you should go home, Meryl. You're drunk. You're drunk. It's an insult to me. It's an insult to half the country, and I'm not even worried about that. It's an insult to every single little girl that was gassed to death in a chamber by actual Nazis who you were trying to equate because somebody didn't elect your pal and you didn't get your chance to go to the White House. Well, you know what? F you. I don't care. I don't care. And I don't even really care what you call me, because we're a little over this. We've heard this for the last 8, 10, 15, 20 years. No, you're Nazis, you're racist, you're not, fine, whatever. If you're going to be a one-trick pony, you got to know how to do the trick, right? But this business about calling conservative and Donald Trump Nazis is an insult to millions and millions and millions of people who actually died. And if you think that you're going to stand up there and get away with this while I'm on the job and our members are behind us here, you are out of your mind. You are out of your mind. You need to be called out for what you are. A narcissist, a filthy narcissist who understands nothing and is having a gigantic temper tantrum because you didn't get invited to the White House. Go home, Meryl. Go home. You're drunk. Whatever goodwill you may have had for the work you've done is gone. You're just an aging, bitter, ignorant, stupid woman who doesn't understand anything and will insult the victims of the greatest crime in history just so you could feel better about yourself. You make me sick. You make me sick to my stomach. No wonder you're part of Hollywood elite. No wonder that just across the hill there is a giant volcano with a big red eye that looks down over Hollywood and is checking everything out. No wonder you people are a laughing stock. No wonder you're so hated. No wonder California is mocked. No wonder. This didn't happen by accident. It happened because of you. And as you said at the Golden Globes, you're now a member of the most despised group in America. You're an actor, you're a progressive, and of course there were the foreigners there. We got nothing against foreigners, but you people are filth. You're just moral filth. You're moral filth. And the sooner you understand how much contempt and revulsion you generate, the better I will like it. We don't love you, Meryl. We don't love you. And we don't love your characters anymore either. And it's not just us. It's not just conservative talk radio people. It's the entire country. We've had enough of it. We're sick and tired of being lectured on morality by the most immoral, stupid people in the United States of America. So that's that. I just gave you that one, members, because I sure didn't want you to think we were short-sheeting you. The membership that you pay for is very, very important to us, and we want to save the best topics for you. So there we go. I thought that was kind of fun. I suspect there's a firewall in that somewhere this week. I think that'll do it for Monday morning. We're going to talk to Stephen Scott and see if we can move the time a little bit. If you're watching live, that'll probably mean it'll go to noon Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern. If, on the other hand, you're watching it archived at billwhittle.com, you can watch it any darn time you want to, and we're very grateful for your membership. So until tomorrow, Tuesday, the 14th, which is Valentine's Day, I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.